What we're going to go through now is a safety check that we call the ABC Quick Check. And you want to do a pretty frequent inspection of your bike. A stands for air in your tires. Now, a very crude way to check is to squeeze those tires. That tire should not feel spongy or squishy at all. I mean, you should really have to use a lot of force even to feel anything squeezing. Now, how do you know accurately how much air should be in there? Okay, everybody find the pressure rating for their tire. It's written somewhere on the side. If you have like a 26-inch tire, it's going to be like 40 to 60. If you have a hybrid, it's going to be 80, 90, somewhere in there. If you have a racing bike like this one, it can be 100, 120, some even say 170. Now, if you don't have enough air in your tires, you're making yourself work harder because you have more of the tire contacting the ground. You're wearing your tires out faster, and you're more likely to catch a flat tire every time you hit a good bump. So what do you think B stands for?
Brakes.
Okay, brakes. What I want everybody to do is squeeze both brake levers. Now, when those brake levers are squeezed, they shouldn't be so close that you can fit less than your thumb between the brake lever and the handlebar. Now, y'all have different types of brakes, but somewhere in most brake systems is what's called an adjusting barrel. For those of you who have hybrids and mountain bikes, that adjusting barrel is right on the brake lever, right here. If you unscrew it, you tighten the cable, so you'll make your brakes tighter. You want to make sure that when you squeeze those brakes, that both sides of the brake bounce back. Okay, if one side doesn't bounce back, your brakes are off center or the tension on one side isn't correct. So just check that and make sure that both sides are bouncing, returning away from the wheel. You can roll your wheel. You shouldn't hear or see any rubbing against the brakes. If something's rubbing, sometimes it's a brake problem, like your brake's not adjusted right or it's not centered correctly. But a lot of times it's a wheel problem. The chain and the cassette, or the cogs, and the crank. All three parts of your drivetrain start with C. About every 100 miles or 150 miles, I like to put a little bit of chain lube on my chain. And what I do is I take a rag and I just grab the chain in my hand with the rag and I roll the chain backwards through that rag to clean as much gunk off as I can. And then I shift the gear, just the back one, shift it into the smallest cog like this. What you want to do is roll the chain backwards a little bit and drip it right into the center of the chain, into these shiny little pivots here. And you can see it sort of dripping down. Don't use WD-40, don't use kerosene, don't use diesel fuel. Get a lube made for a bike chain. Sometimes people are riding around with cranks and chain rings that are bent. This is the crank right here, and these things with the jagged teeth that you don't want to get your pants caught in are the chain ring. And to just check them, roll your crank backwards and just look at it, and you'll see whether or not the chain rings are warped. The next one is quick. What does quick stand for? It's your quick release on your wheels. A lot of people don't know how to use these and tighten them, and they're riding around with quick releases that are not safely locked down. The way these work, you want to get this nut just tight enough so that when you start to close it, you get resistance halfway closed. So I just tighten the nut up a little bit and I close it again. And then when it's closed, you should not be able to rotate that quick release around in the closed position. You don't want the quick release pointing forwards, especially on a mountain bike, because if something catches it, it will open it up. The last part is check it over. Okay, make sure there's nothing loose on your bike. What I like to do is like a little 2-inch drop test. You lift your bike up just a couple inches, and if you hear something loose, but a lot of people, they have fenders, they have chain guards, they have stuff bolted onto their bike, racks, and something's loose. There's a loose bolt or something, they drop it, something's rattling. You don't want something like that to come off while you're flying down a hill at 25 miles an hour.